Good evening, everyone. Topic of today's session is discussion on alternate product. For this, we have invited Mr. Niraj Harlalka, Head Business Intelligence and Sales Process, Whiteoak AMC. Now, I would like to request sir to take this session forward. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this. At the start, let me also wish everyone the best of the festive seasons that is to come around, and looking forward to this interaction. We have a very interesting topic today, which is a discussion on alternate products. And today, as we see as the mutual fund or the investment space is changing, we are seeing that new ideas, new products are coming into the market, and a lot of client interest is also there on what these products are about and what they can do for us, right? I think at the outset, the most important thing is to understand how these products really work. At the end of the day, I believe that, each of these products have a different risk mechanism. Uh, Risk mechanism, and then sorry, we do you want to wait for some time, or you want to continue?
So we can continue. In the meantime, the other participants will join.
Okay, cool. Right, so I believe each of these products have a different risk that they serve. And at the end of the day, if a client is looking for a different risk, it is in some manner, our endeavor to really go out and show that risk product, or that product which serves that need of the client, right? So if I were to really start distinguishing anything between, let's say, a mutual fund versus a PMS or an AIF, the main point that it serves is risk management, right? Today, in some manner, SEBI tells us, also with um, a PMS with 50 lakhs of minimum ticket size, a client will not be retailish in nature and will have an X amount of AUM before they venture into a PMS on an asset allocation. I think each one of us will, be careful about that. And the same thing goes with an AIF, right? When you start looking at an AIF, this we want to believe that each of the investor that is looking for investing in this is obviously having a certain X amount of AUM, and that allocation is what we will try and give them, because that serves that need, right? So, in that context, I will maybe start with. We have two AIFs that we have on offering as of now. One is an healthcare and of fund, whereas the second one is on the it's a diversified AIF, but it is a biased small and mid cap AIF that is there, which we have on offering at this point, right? What I'm going to do is maybe start with the healthcare one, and then we can move to the other one. I'm assuming my screen is visible, and I'm
Yes.
going to, start with this. So, why healthcare at the first point, right? Uh, if you see, when we are looking at some long-term themes to invest in, right, there are two sets, or there can be two sets of themes that are available to invest in. One could be a structural, as we can see, and one can be a tactical theme, right? A structural theme is which, fundamentally will be much stronger and will have a much longer roadway or the runway which is there, where a tactical will be a short term and opportunist in some manner. If you start, trying, if we start and try and break these sectors up, you will see like a commodity or certain commodities are typically in that fashion, or even if you look at exports can be one other cyclical theme, right? In that same breath, when we start looking at structural items, concepts, you have the BFSI. So we all know, just as simple as UPI will continue to be as strong as it is, right? Or the banking, lending, so on and so forth, will be on a growth path. Same thing on a healthcare. If you see, we all, hope not, but it is a given that we will all use, or as a country, we will continue to use many and more healthcare products, maybe for our for our well-being or for medical care, right? And that is not changing for sure. So I think this is something that we believe will is a long run something that you can invest in. Consumption in the amount of things that we are using in digital today is a lot more, and we continue to grow in as a digital in every field of life, right? So I think these are structural themes that continue to be there. So that's one of the the reason why we will want to look at high healthcare. The next one is, what is the landscape of the healthcare in our country or anywhere, right? And it is no longer just a pharmaceutical space. There is more than pharmaceuticals that is there, right? So you have beyond pharmaceuticals, you have the hospitals, you have the diagnostic centers. For for pharma companies, you will have to use the APIs, which are the ingredients provider, the CROs and the CMOs, which are nothing but the research and the manufacturers that are there for the pharma companies for them to use. And like for a diagnostic center, there is the medical devices that they need. And ultimately, we never purchase pharmaceuticals from the company directly, or medicines from pharmaceutical companies directly. We purchase it from retail pharmacies. So there is a large ecosystem that, if you were to put it in the healthcare sub segment, which exists, and which will continue to be there. Just give me a second. I am sorry. Just give me a second.
Sure, sir.
Apologies for the same. So, like I was saying, there is an ecosystem that is built around this whole, and you have all these parts that are growing with it. Now, while we've spoken about how it's a structural item, and then the landscape is quite big, but it is also important to understand, is there scale in the business or not, right? And once we, a few pointers that we start looking at, and it shows that we have there can be a lot of scale. So today, as a per capita, we are spending only $80 on healthcare, but countries like an Indonesia, even in a Mexico or a Brazil, as you can see, is spending 2x, 3x, or 10x compared to us. And even a country like China, with its high population like us, is nearly 8x that is spending, right? Or when we look at as a percentage of GDP, There are many multiple countries like again Mexico, Brazil, if you were to look at it, are spending much more, while we are not. And but even a country like China, which is high population, is way ahead of what we really spend, right? And I've not even started to compare to the developed markets. I think those are still far away, but even in the emerging markets, as you can see, that's there. The other point, if you start looking at, is even in the hospitals, right? The beds per thousand as being as it's looked at, you we can see that we are where the beds per thousand are way low, and I think this was evident even in the COVID period that unfortunate that came about, that is there. Now, one very interesting aspect, or we know of that the lifestyle diseases is the second part or the third part, if I may, which is causing this. So if you see the inner ring, which is 2019, compared to outer ring, which is 2010, we are seeing that the number of diseases on that for various things is just going up, right? So there will be aspects of this that people will want to uh, cater to. Now we saw that it's a structural part. There are lifestyle diseases. We saw that there are many subparts to that, and also this industry comes about with a cost efficiency that we have compared to the world, right? So when you look at what we pay to literally the scientist talent pool in India for the CROs and the CDMOs, we are paying less than 50% of what China pays, less, one third of what UK pays, 20% of what US pays, and about 15% of what Switzerland pays, right? So you are seeing that there is a large cost efficiency that exists here. Now, coincidentally, because this is a very technical and a service industry in some sense, you compare it with IT sector, and you see that if you were to compare the two, we have a talent pool which is as massive, that is in IT. The cost competitiveness which I spoke of also exists, but more importantly, there is a large trust and respect for the IP that is there, because these things are very confidential. A lot of companies are doing research, or their research medications which are needs to be manufactured need to be confined with, which we have that. Yes, the size of the market may not be as big as IT, but when we can have a 13% market share, and where we are less than 3% market share, I think it warrants or can be a substantially higher when we look at it, right? Um, where do we stand? India stands compared to the world in this, right? So we are nearly 60% of global vaccine production that is there. Obviously, if people, if the one could, they would have already migrated out. But I think the cost efficiency, etc., like we spoke of, continues to be very strong. We are the largest of the generic medicine globally, occupying 20% of the global supply chain, right? You can see here that even India, for the US FDA approved, we are the highest number of US FDA approved facilities outside the US, right? And it shows the competitive advantage and the cost of advantage we have. We produce 33% lower than the globally. Now, some of you may have this question of saying, there was some tariff news that came out a few days back. But remember, those were only on branded medications and not generic. And we are talking a lot more on the generic side that is there. So this, which is the generic India players, is about 46% in the US, but the top three non-generic players are substantially coming down. They are more on the branded side, if I were right. Look at the size, right? Uh, One company is nearly 6.5 times of all the top five companies that are there in our market, right? The five pharma companies. They add, each 6.5 times. So that's the scale or the magnitude that we have on this. Interestingly, this sector, when you look at the correlation with the market, is very low. It's 0.66 in a 1 year rolling and a 0.32 in a 3 year rolling, and not much. So, it gives you a lot of downside protection in case there is ever a correction. So you can see in 2011 or 2008, this sector hardly corrected relative to the market, obviously, and gives a lot of confidence. But on the same breath, as you can see here, this sector also over a long period has delivered slightly higher than Nifty or Nifty 500 as the case may be, right? So there is a lot of attributes to this. When we are not too far, it's not away from the averages when you look at the PE or the PB, whichever you may choose to. So it's not very highly rich valuation that is there on a long-term average, if you see. So, to summarize, there is a lot of heterogeneousness in this sector. Even in hospitals, you will find multiple kinds of hospitals. In diagnostic center, you find some are radiologists, some are pathologists, some are both. In hospitals, there may be multi-specialist, there may be a single, there may be, like a rainbow children, which we have in our portfolio. Some may own their own hospital, some may, maybe on a contract basis, like how hospitals, while hotels also work. So, there are a couple of them in Bombay that we know of for sure. And so is in pharma. So, the heterogeneousness of this sector is very, very high. What constitutes of this sector is lot may in the large cap, but I think a number of companies, a number of companies tend to be in pharmaceuticals, but the number of companies that exist in the small cap is extremely high. When we are landscaping this sector, and bottom up stock picking will be a key factor. Interestingly, if you see a few years back, we had like seven companies listed on the market from the API CDMOs, which has more than doubled in the last few years. We had about four hospitals listed back then, and now we have close to 15, right? So the investable space in this country is also changing rapidly in the last few years. Last 10 years, in fact, things have changed substantially. So I think the investable space, like I said, is changing. Uh, of the addressable market, how big the market is, if you were to look at it from the overall market, uh, a very few parts are listed in this currently. So there is a lot of opportunities that things will get listed as we go about, and then the opportunities. If you'll see in the last few years, also you got many of these kinds of companies that got listed in the market that is there. Right. What is interesting for us is, like I said, because many are more at White Oak, given the team size that we have and the expertise that we have, there is enough opportunity that we are looking at sourcing and investing in either unlisted or pre-IPO or at the anchoring stage. And we've done quite a few, which has helped us generate a lot of alpha. That is there. I'll try and skip a few slides. The presentation will be circulated with all of you to see. But let me just put some track record on this sector itself. So as you would know that we are an 8-year-old organization, but if you start looking at our oldest fund or our different strategies put together, where have we invested? So the BSC 500, which has about 5.4% average weightage in the last 8 odd years, you could see that we have been 2x weightage in our funds more times than not and this is the average. You will not find this as true in any other sectors that we've been investing in where we are 2x. And the alpha that we've been generated is over 2x compared to the index. So the healthcare index gave about 251, we are about 521. So, this is a very strong alpha generation that we've done. If you go back and even look at the strategy that has been managed by Prashant during his Goldman days, you will see a similar pattern that is there for sure. Right. And if you look at it on small and mid cap also, you will find the same this thing. I mentioned to you that we've been looking at investing in a lot of anchor preferential shares or pre-IPO. You will see, we've done about the strategies held about 13 odd percent with a breakup of the two. But in that we've generated close to about 58% of return on such 57, 58%. That is there. On the pre-IPO anchoring preference over a period, we've done about 57 investments over 600, 1,600 crores and has added a lot of alpha to our portfolios over the period. Last but not the least, I think this is the most important thing. We have a very strong team that manages Manoj Garg, who's with us since a founding member. He's there. Instantly, he was working with companies like Cipla and Ipca Labs for 10 years before he really became a analyst. So, he understands that sector very well. Diresh, who has over nearly 2 decades of experience, was with Goldman and other companies, is an expert at this sector. Sharik himself also. So each one of them have been, a stalwart, so to say, in the analyst of this sector. So, this is the part I would like to cover on the healthcare. The other one that we have, like I mentioned, was a fund where we are looking at being biased to small and mid cap. I think this is like it's mentioned here, we will have close to minimum 60% in small and mid cap, the rest in large cap. But again, we will do selective pre-IPOs and unlisted in this market. We've already started doing, and we have a few names in this. But why look at this space is, a great opportunity, or why should, why do we find alpha? So firstly, as you would know, we have more than or close to 50 members of just an investment team that we as we speak, and that gives us a scale of analyzing many and more companies. The in-house research capability matters because if you see, this is where mid cap ends, and in the small cap space, number of analysts covering the stocks literally disappears as we get to only 500. Imagine what it happens below that. So I think you one needs a lot many in-house capability to capture this. And what happens, this is the virgin territory or the more lucrative territory, if I were to put it, for us to get high investment or alpha opportunity, because you find a lot of niche businesses, more diversified, less research, like I mentioned, and usually you will find a lower institute holding in this, which culminates into a lot more opportunity that is there. One of the key interesting ideas about the India market is that India is more heterogeneous than space. We have, or the weightage is well distributed amongst multiple industries when you compare it to a lot of emerging markets that you may see. So, Taiwan, if you see 76% of it is just purely technology. Korea is about 37 is just there. Brazil, if you start seeing, is about 32% in financials. So you see, we are a lot more heterogeneous in that sense and gives us a lot many opportunities, which is there. So, you won't find a large cap tire company, you won't find a large cap textile company. Now we have one large cap hotel company, but barring that, we don't. So many market leaders are, in the mid or the small cap, and you get benefit of that. So if you look at even a Maruti, for an example, it's not really a car manufacturer; it's an assembler, right? And the assembly line, they procure parts or things from other companies. So hypothetically speaking, even if you look at, somebody who makes cars, the seat covers or the seat fabric for these cars, you could have a company that supplies to the top four, five automobile companies in this country, right? And that even more reasons than not will be a small cap or a mid cap. So you get many more opportunities that is there. And again, like I mentioned, the team is extremely important, and this gives us an edge. And why is that is important? That because the bottom up stock picking is the critical aspect of this. So if you look at over a period of 20 years, we've mapped out in blocks of every 5 years. Half of the mid cap companies remain mid cap, but as many can turn into a small cap. But if you can pick these 8 to 10% of these companies which become a large cap, you can, the average return these companies end up is about 39%. Right. The same thing up, if similar thing, if you look in small cap, and small cap is a lot more to pick out, 95 to 98 odd percent of the companies typically remain a small cap. But if you are a great stock selector, you will see, that 2 to 5% of the companies which turn into a mid cap, you could end up with a 42% return on them in these. Large caps are rare and few, so I'm not getting into that. But yeah, obviously making money then is multifold, right? So in this, you see this with us, there is the opportunity of picking multiple companies in multiple sectors. So what I'm going to do is share a look at construction of where the portfolio is to give you a sense of where we stand. So today, the small cap component is about 63% in large cap. But given that this is an AIF and not a small cap mutual fund or something, I can be agnostic to the sector weightages and take more risk for sure. So as you can see, energy or utilities, we are zero. You can see that usually you will never find a fund so substantially underweight of financials, right? From 30% to 18, 19%. These things, friends, we can do in an AIF. You can't do this in, let's say, a mutual fund or a PMS. We are quite decently overweight consumer discretion. Healthcare in this part of the portfolio also is overweight, as you would have guessed. So, these are one of the best opportunities for us to pick since inception, which is about 5th September, we've delivered close to 2% alpha. But in the last 6 months, it's even been more strong, which is about 5.5% alpha to the market that we've already generated. So maybe, to summarize, we have two AIFs that we've been doing. One is an healthcare pharma one, where it's not just about pharmaceutical. There is the hospitals, the hospitals, the diagnostic centers, and etc. It is a very heterogeneous space where one can look at, and the correlation to the market is much lower, but the growth or the scale that we can get in this country as of now is extremely high. So I think the opportunity lies is immense, and it's a structural change sector. It's not a cyclical, so to say. So it has a long runway for sure. And the second AIF that we have is that of small cap bias. The reason that we do a small cap bias is the opportunity that you can pick stocks and have for a long run is very high. In a mutual fund, you have challenges of a small cap. You got to maintain liquidity, you got to manage risk, you got to do multiple things. But in an AIF, we have, in a mutual fund, there is no upper end to the AUM that you hold. In an AIF, we have the advantage of having relatively smaller AUM. You don't have to worry about liquidity as much. The risk taking ability goes up, and the allocations in sectors can be varied. So I think overall this gives us an opportunity to make some more alpha. If there is an HNI client looking at diversifying and managing more risk for these portfolio such ideas, I think it's a good way to take these ideas to them.
Thank you, sir, for joining with us. And thank you to all the participants also for joining with us. Thank you, sir.